Professor Helen Forgasz from the Education faculty at Monash University has been one of the highlighted presenters in the diversity stream at the Australian Government Summer School for Mathematics Teachers held at the University of New England in January 2008. Her presentation, as I said, was in the diversity stream and it was entitled NESB, LBOT, Culture, Language and Mathematics Learning. Helen, I was just wondering if you can tell us what the main focus of your presentation was.
Well, the goal of the presentation was to draw attention to some of the issues that students from non-English speaking backgrounds or different cultural backgrounds might face in the classroom. I certainly wanted to make sure that people recognised that not all students from different cultural backgrounds and non-English speaking backgrounds necessarily will have difficulties, but some do, and there are a number of other factors that come into play as well. So the focus was on some of the things some of the issues that can present difficulties for students from those backgrounds and what teachers in classrooms might be able to do to address some of those issues. Right. As we know, in Australia we have a melting pot of people from all sorts of different backgrounds and waves of immigration from different countries at different times. Yep. And particularly in some locations and contexts more so than others, particularly I guess in big metropolitan cities, big cities, teachers are having, almost every few years students from different backgrounds coming into their classrooms. And they have to deal with the issues that these students bring with them. And it's not always just language issues that bring about some issues that create difficulties for them in mathematics. But language issues are a focus of what I'm talking about, because language is key to so many different things. But there are also societal expectations of different ones from different cultural backgrounds. I'm not talking so much about, I haven't been talking so much about that, but more so on language issues as I said, what teachers can do in the classroom, and the fact that mathematics teachers must also be teachers of language is an important point that I bring to the attention of the teachers present. So it's not only you can't depend on English language support from the ESL teachers or whatever. The maths teacher has a role to play in that as well. So the particular focus is on sort of issues related to mathematics learning, of course, not just the general stuff.
So would you be able to just tell us about one or two of the key issues or ideas that you hope that participants from the summer school might go away with from your presentation?
Well, I think I want to present with the language issues some of the key ones, and one of the ones that I think makes a strong point to teachers is one to do with prepositions or logical connectives, for example. So if you give the example of the temperature has increased by 10 degrees, from 10 degrees, to 10 degrees, all the subtle differences that are associated with the change in the one small word, that for people who are familiar with the language doesn't cause much difficulty, but for those from different backgrounds, particularly when they're new into the country, I mean, it doesn't take too long for young children to pick up a second language, but it's those initial times, and we know that they can be key in mathematics learning at certain points in their learning cycle. So that's one key example. Another one might be words that have double meanings in English, such as the word angle. You can talk about having a different angle on something, and then you've got the geometric notion of the angle. Those sorts of things, a lot of other languages actually don't have as many, I believe don't have as many words as English does, that have the same word with multiple meanings. another key example is how many ways can you say, and I'll have to say it one way, 6 plus 5 equals 11. In English we can say that in a multitude of different ways. If you add 5 to 6 you get 11. The sum of 6 and 5 is 11. And teachers just willy-nilly use the different ways of saying the same thing and assume that children all understand them. And even our English-speaking children have some trouble with that.
Yes, I guess the richness and subtlety of our language is a real positive, but it's obviously a huge obstacle for a lot of people. It can
cause some problems in the classroom. So, I mean, language issues are one that I sort of have highlighted in the presentation. But of course, with cultural backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, as I said, there are things like different expectations. For example, in some societies, you know, the issue of gender and the culture is a very strong one. So very strong stereotypes. You know, women do these things in life and men do those things. And mathematics can be part of that cultural expectation. So breaking down those barriers is another thing that teachers need to think about. So.
Can you outline some of the things that you think may be possible for them that the teachers to take back into their schools and start to apply?
Well, during the workshop part, after the main presentation, I will, the people who come to that as well will have the opportunity to engage directly with some of the activities that I'm suggesting could be used with students. Now, it's drawing on materials that have been prepared by others, very carefully prepared because they have to be carefully designed to make the point. But the point I make is that all students can use these activities. They're not just specifically only for the NESB students. Although the focus might be language, they're generally pedagogically good activities as well. So, for example, a group work activity in which people have to use mathematical language is enriching for all students and not just students from NESB backgrounds. So they will actually engage with some of those activities that others have developed and hopefully can take away the ideas from that, see how they could adapt them into their own classrooms with the particular NESB students they may have. And I might add, I didn't mention before that although not all Australian Indigenous students are NESB, some are. So there's the overlap again of Indigenous issues and NESB issues. So so some of the activities are focused on you know, as I said, things that teachers can do that are generally pedagogically good anyway.
So the summer school website will have available some of these practical resources. Are there other sources that you feel people could go to get additional material or information that would help them in this area?
Well, that's a very good question. I guess I'd like to make a point here that there hasn't been a lot of creative new stuff coming out in the field of mathematics and non-English speaking backgrounds. I think the materials, newer materials in the field are pretty thin on the ground. I have to say though that, you know, that looking at textbooks and things, there's certainly the images of the people portrayed in the textbooks are much more equitable in terms of representing our Australian cross-section of the population. But the specific materials when we have, you know, some new immigrants and so on, specifically for mathematics, are set a thin on the ground. So in terms of reading about things, I'm hoping that the 3 articles I've given them will be, at least give some names of people who've done research in the field and follow through on some of the work that they've done. And in terms of resources, well, I've got one book that is that I've drawn a lot of the activities from, developed by Molly McGregor and somebody more, I can't remember the surname, sorry, who was at Melbourne University. But that's from some time ago, but the activities are still pertinent. So that's a bit of a hard one to answer in terms of what is around.
All right, well thank you very much, Helen, for that. Much appreciated.
My pleasure.